Hey Curtis,
Hello, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm doing well. I am doing well.
And for
Thanks for
me, this was a mission to just connect, get to understand who you are a bit more, your journey,
right.
but then also that moment that happened uh, whilst you were
Yes, definitely.
protesting.
I see exactly what you guys are doing over in the UK, man. I salute you for doing that. You guys have to remain strong and continue to do what you do, and that's how we'll get. That's how we'll get unified as a country, as a whole, as a world. So I salute you on what you guys are doing for sure over in the UK.
But before we get into that video, could you just tell everybody who you are, what your name is, and what you do?
My name is Curtis Hayes. I am a entrepreneur. I'm also a philanthropist, and I'm also the founder of EMCB, which is Excuse Maker or Cycle Breaker, that was founded here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
For that business, what do you do? So what's the business
So
operation?
the first thing that I do is I own a successful property maintenance company where we service
Okay.
hundreds of retailers across the United States, where we
Wicked.
provide COVID-19 services along with daily janitorial services, floor care services,
Amazing.
and things in that aspect, where I employ over 150 individuals. UK.
Amazing. Cool. So let's talk a bit more about what's happening in the US.
I understand.
Well, we worried about this
I understand.
material, but we won't stand up for the
I
motherfuckers
understand.
that get killed on the
Come
daily
here, talk
basis.
to me. I understand. How old are you?
I'm tired of this shit,
How old are
man.
you?
I'm 45 years old.
45 and I'm 31.
And I'm tired of seeing
And
this
you
shit,
the
man.
older generation than me, and I am
Right.
too.
And we've been standing
But let me
around
tell you
as the
something.
older ones, taking all this bullshit. Always hoping for a kumbaya fucking y'all.
Come here.
Always standing around for a kumbaya. Ain't nobody coming to protect us.
Let me tell you
We gotta
something.
start our own fucking life.
I understand. But let me tell you something right here. This 16. He's 16.
They gonna kill him next
He's
week.
16.
What we gonna do?
You tell me.
What we gonna
But this
do?
ain't the way. Because they ready to let loose. If the United States president say, if you loot, we shoot. Do you think doing this going
I
on?
know it.
It's doing
I
this
know
now.
it. But it's time to stand up. At
So don't get into it with him.
this point, I'm ready to die.
Let me tell
For
you
what's
something.
going on?
Let me tell you something.
That's the problem that we
What
got.
you see right now is going to happen 10 years from now. And at 26, you're going to be doing the same thing I'm doing. You understand that? 10 years. You're going to be right here too.
But he also got to
So
stand
what I
up for
need
what he
y'all
gotta
to
stand
do
up
right
for.
now at 16 is come up with a better way. Because how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16.
It's old, man. It's old,
You
man.
understand me?
It's old.
Putting yourself in harm's way
I
is
know
not
it.
the way.
No, it's not.
You and then other your counterparts the same age and that has that same power. Y'all come up with a better way. Cause we ain't doing it.
Oh my God.
And I have a 5-year-old son.
Oh my God.
And it ain't happening. I marched 4 years ago. Keep in mind, stop. Did the same shit y'all doing. The same exact thing night after night after night. It don't matter. Come up with a better way. You understand me? You keep yourself safe.
So for me, that was very important as well because, you know, the way you constructed what you said in the video that we see there was so powerful, so authentic, so organic, so real. When you hear that back as well, and you hear yourself kind of, you know, the level of emotion, the level of connection to mind, connection to where we need to be, you know, what are you feeling at that point when you're talking to the young guy and talking to the old guy?
I feel what I feel every day. That feeling at that moment wasn't different than any other feeling when I do anything for my community. I do things for my community throughout the year. This is just one instant that happened to resonate on people's heart across the world, right? So the feeling that I had last night with that young man is hurt. I think it's hurt that all of us as a black man whole are feeling, right?
One of the things you mentioned was if we can't carry on this way. So is there a sense of concern, fear, worry? What is there with regards to protection? That what I felt anyway was, I don't want to see you in a position where you're so passionately involved in what's going on with the riots, perhaps, and then you end up in a situation where you're dead.
I don't fear. I understand that my journey is my journey, and however my journey ends is how it's going to end. I accept that. But I need other Black men to accept that you can't be scared, because we are the leaders of our communities. We are the leaders of our household. We are the leaders of our families, and we are scared, and we portray fear. Then that's what's going to trickle down to everybody else behind us.
So on that note particularly, what would be a message, so to Black men more globally now? Because one of the things that, for the conversations we've been having over the UK, is biologically and by way of our connection ethnically, we almost feel the pain that Black men in America are going through in a different way, being that we are Black men, and racism across the board needs to stop. And there are Black men in other Western countries that also feel connected, obviously because of social media now, we're able to see certain things. And what would your message to Black men be, understanding that you've had some time away from that situation, you've been able to almost revisit it through the recording several times? If you could articulate something to Black men right now globally, what would that message be?
All right, so every Black man that is listening, again, we are feared, we are disliked, we may even be hated. They may not even want us here. But the reality is that you are here, you are not going anywhere. Kids that you bring into this world are not going anywhere. So Black men, I ask you and I encourage you to stand up for what you know is right. When we come from our homes and we come from our Black mothers, they instill in us morals. That is how we were raised as Black men. They teach us things. So I ask that you go back and you hear those things that you heard as a child, that you heard from your mother, that you heard from your grandmother, that you heard from your father, your grandfather, or whoever that told you at the time who you were. And if they didn't tell you who you were and how much of value you were, I am here to tell you, you are valuable. You are the Black man. You are the protector. I'm asking you to stand up and rise up and do not be in fear of what the propaganda gives us, because we succumb to those things. We succumb to those things when our mental allows us to. So I ask that you release the mental prison that we have been in for so many years.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from your video as well. So with the situation, it was so poetic almost in the way it came together. You were speaking to the older generation and you were speaking to the younger generation. So one guy was 45, you're 31, the next guy was 16, and you said, this ain't the way.
No.
That's one thing you kept on saying, this ain't the way, this ain't the way. So with that in mind, what would be the way? Because at the same time in your video, you almost felt like, I was here, I've been here 4 years ago, you said, and you almost predict that the 16-year-old is going to be here 10 years to come. So it's almost like this ongoing cycle. So if we have seen it, we can experience it as Black men as an ongoing cycle, almost that has followed me for what would feel like my lifetime. And many people in the UK, it's a bit different, but it's a similar notion by way of the position we stand in economically. What is the way? Have you had some time to think about that?
Today is, what is the way? What is the new way? And I've thought about that question over and over and over. And when I start thinking, I hear that you have different views, right? So you have people that don't like protesters that move like Malcolm X. And then you have people that don't like protesters that move like Martin Luther King. Well, we need all of them. All of them. I stood with some brothers yesterday, and one of them I was really fond of because he spoke very educated. He spoke with intellect, and he spoke as a part of coming from the Martin Luther King way. Right. And I am the one that comes from the Malcolm X way. And it doesn't matter which way you come from, right? As long as you come. Martin Luther King's way wasn't wrong, Malcolm X's way wasn't wrong, and anybody in between. So I think the better way is that we all come together, whether you are Martin Luther King, or whether you are Malcolm X, or anyone in between, but that we come together and we figure out a way to really hit them where it hurts. And where I think that it hurts is our young people getting in your elections and going and running for city council or voting for your Senate, voting for your elected officials. Those actions has to come together as one.
Before what happened, you stood out, you spoke out, and you said, and I've got some context as to where that comes from now, a bit more from the video, that you are someone in the community that is just your default character. You know, and this isn't new, this is just perhaps the first time someone had a camera and filmed it, and it, you know, it's been received globally. What happened before that moment? Why did you step into that moment? And what happened after? But I want to focus initially on what happened before that moment. So before you go in and you talk to that older, you know, the old guy, 45-year-old guy, what made you talk to him? And then, you know, what made you kind of bring in the 16-year-old and kind of what was happening? Could you just paint the picture?
Got you. So, you know, you're on a major highway and you have a police car that is trapped in a protest. And you have angry people that are protesting peacefully, but they're still angry. And you have them surrounding this police car. And we see across the world right now where vandalism and police are getting hurt and things like that. And at that moment, it wasn't that I didn't want the officers to not necessarily get hurt, but I didn't want any parties to get hurt. I didn't want them to damage their property. I didn't want them to hurt the police officers. And I didn't want the officers to retaliate and hurt them, right? So I stepped in because he was one of the main people that was voicing his opinion. And he's the older male. And we know that Black older guys are strong and they are powerful. And I wanted him to use his voice and his power for a different message, because there was a lot of people out there that was watching him. And that 16-year-old man was watching him. And as a 31-year-old man, I was watching him. And even in the midst of that, I had to let him know, I am watching you. The generation after me is watching you. And how you conduct yourself and the message that you display at this moment of time is either going to dwindle down and is going to affect our people in a negative way, or it's going to go up and is going to impact them in a powerful way. It's because I delivered that message to him and it resonated on his heart. And like he said, he's angry and he's tired of it. And like I told him, generations before you are and were, your generation is now, and the generations be after you and after me right now is tired and angry. But I need you to display it on a level that we can understand and that they can see what is really going on from generation to generation to generation.
So moving after that, what was the conversation? So when the cameras went off, what was the dialogue with that 16-year-old boy, and what was the dialogue with? Did you feel some type of understanding? Because it came off at a point where it felt like you were resonating, but nobody knows what happens.
Well, the thing is I had seen him earlier in the protest,
right?
And I asked him how old he was. When I turned around and I looked at his face, I can see, I'm like, wow, this man is young.
Yeah.
And I'm an outspoken person, and I asked him, how old are you? And he said, sir, I'm 16. And I said, where's your parents? You are out here in the midst of a protest that is considered chaos, and it can go either way any moment. And I understand, I told him I understand, and I understood that you are angry. But I asked him, I said, you are 16. I said, let me fight your fight, because you have a long life ahead of you. And you know, I have tons of cousins that I've supported through my time of coming up as a young man, 20, 21. And I know my rage, and I know that I was angry. And now at 31, I can sit and I can relate to it.
Mm.
And I know the journey that I went through when I was angry and I was mad. I almost lost my life, not only to the ground, but to society, to jail, to prison. I almost became a statistic.
Mm.
And then when I looked at him, I seen all of my cousins. I seen my son. I seen athletes that I talk with on an everyday basis. I'm a basketball official, so I run into so many youth and I try to give them a message and I try to be this upstanding guy, but I am angry. Why do I always have to be the upstanding guy? Why do I have to be the upstanding man? Why can't the other party be upstanding? And why can't the other party ask their own people who is doing the damage? Why can't you be upstanding and know that there's a better way? And you beating us and killing us and degrading us is not the way. And to my people, do not allow it to happen to you any longer. You don't deserve it.
I mean, I almost don't really want to ask you much else. Like, I feel you as much as I can feel you from across the world, from not being in your position, but being able to empathize as a black man. And the way George Floyd's death as well hit me and many others, but this one in particular, and the proximity, I guess, to when it happened and now.
Right.
What was that like for you when you come across the video and you're already communicating from a position where you've got the lived experience, you've passed through it, you transcended it, you've become a better person, you didn't become the statistic, but then you're still seeing black men and black people suffer. What was that like when you saw that video? For a lot of people, it was devastating, man. I think everybody who I know who saw it was devastating. Obviously, social media now has given people the power to have what I would say are disingenuous views to human nature and express some of those views and perhaps not understand it and be on a different side, which is bizarre to, I think, any human being. But what was that like for you, being a black man that lives in America, has transcended your experiences, is someone that's communicating to a lot of young people on a regular basis, trying to create a better way, trying to be an upstanding person, as you said, to see that happen? How did that make you feel when you saw it?
When you look at the video and you see just the positioning of how he was, and you see the officer with his knee in between his neck. I have an uncle that could literally put you to sleep with just a touch right here. A touch, it's a pressure point. And as I'm watching the video and I hear him telling them, man, I can't breathe. And they ignored his cry out. And the response was, if you can talk, you can breathe. And when I think that about him using his last words and was crying out for help, like just asking anybody to just intervene. And I can imagine you taking you know that you are taking your last breath. You know that you are about to leave your mother behind. You know that you are leaving your kids behind. You are leaving nephews. You are leaving nieces. It hurts me not only for George Floyd, the man that died, but it hurts me because as just another black man that has lost his father, that has lost that could have lost any male figure in his life to possibly guide him. And it makes me feel responsible that I have to step up in George Floyd's role because I was a young black man at 16. You were a young black man at 16. And we know what we encountered at those times, and we know we encountered times after that. And you look at the video and you sit there and you even go into the cop's mind to sit there and say, damn, what was he thinking? What was going through his mind? How was he feeling? Did he even really mean to do it? But how can you not mean to do something knowing you're doing it wrong? Knowing that your knee is in the wrong place, where this man is, you're cutting off his oxygen slowly but surely, and he's asking you, please, officer, just let me stand up. Please, officer, take your knee off of me. Please, officer, let me breathe. Please, officer, I'm asking you to let me live. You tell me, out of everybody that's seen it, everybody has the same feeling. I don't care whether you're white or black. In your heart, you know it was wrong.
Let me just take a minute.
It hurts, man. It hurts. It hurts because you go through a life, and I only can speak for me, but I went through a time where I was lost. And I did things that was out of my character, and I did things to fit in, and I did things for attention, and I did things to try to get somebody just to love me, essentially, just to care. And you look at how you come out of those things. And so when you think about George Floyd and you think about him laying right there on that ground, my fear is that if he had a son, if he had a nephew, that they will be on that same ground, which is a different officer at a different time and a different day. And you ask me how I feel, and how I feel is outraged that we don't step up as a people and we try to break that. We try to break that cycle. We try to break that generational curse.
So you said something I wanted to kind of draw out of that and just kind of shift. So you said something I want to just draw out of that.
You good, man?
So two things. So you talked about shifting that, changing the narrative. What we've coined is changing the narrative. 56 black men. How do we change the narrative? And I want to ask you that question. And do you feel hopeless in that fight or in that journey, or do you feel like you have some real clarity over how we could change the narrative? Because there's so much that goes with this. And if anyone watching, any black man watching, could take anything out of this, particularly black men and black boys, and I've asked you to say a message to them before, but kind of drawing from your personal story, how did you transcend what you were going through and what you almost became? So how did you transcend what you were going through, what you almost became, and become the person you are today? How did you do that? What was the process from your younger self and becoming an upstanding guy, as you've coined it, and a business owner, a philanthropist, and all these different things that you are that are not necessarily predicted for a lot of black people and black men across the board? What was the turning points in your life that put you in a position to navigate your journey in a better way? In a nutshell, and I know you can't communicate 31 years of life in a 5-minute bit of dialogue. But
Right.
you know, what would if you could think of one of your earliest, the freshest moments where you could have gone left, but you went right, and that was part of what shifted and shaped.
But the thing is that I did go left.
Right.
So when you ask that question, I did go left. I went left. I went far left. But things that happen in my life and throughout, and people that has entered into and has exited, has taught me that I don't want to do the same thing.
Right.
I am not a follower. I have followed for several years and it's gotten me nowhere. And in my mental, I always knew that I had a purpose. Just at that time, I didn't want to fulfill it. But to be honest, not only my mother's struggle and her journey before I even came into this world, but my father. And he is a Black man, and I don't want to take anything away from him while I'm on this platform. But at the same time, the decisions that he made as a man affected my life to the point where I almost lost it. And when I went through those things, it angered me because I felt as though if he was there, my life at that time would have been different. But I talked to my mother last night and I told her, I regret nothing from my journey, because my journey is what made me. But knowing that there are so many Black men that will go through the same stage that I went through at a very dark time of my life, as I encountered moments with young Black men across the country with officiating, I knew that they needed someone that they could relate to, because when you have no one to relate to and you have no one to really hit you where you need to be hit at to cause the change that is needed, I told myself at 23 that I would make an impact in my community. I will make an impact with the young kings and queens of America. That's my motto. And then God gave me something that I will live by forever. He said, Curtis, I want you to go out and I want you to spread the message of dead the excuses, break the cycle, and take flight. Because you have the opportunity to do it. Do not let anyone hold you back from doing it. Even to you, Black man, you have a platform, you have a purpose. You continue to serve your purpose, and don't do it on a small scale. You do it on the biggest scale you can do it on, because we need it. We need it. And I want you to tell the next Black man, we need you, because I'm telling you, we need you over in the UK to continue to spread the message that we need in the world. We need you.